Hello, hello. Hola. ¿Cómo va todo? Hello. I know that the lunch is almost there. I have an experiment that I want to do, if you want to participate. I saw that some people left the room because probably they are already doing the queue because they are hungry or something like that. I want to generate a FOMO feeling into them. So they come back to the room and we have like crowd of people. So what I wanted to ask you, if you want to participate, I will count to 3. And when I count to 3, you scream, you shout, you clap your hands, you say, oh, this is the best thing I've ever seen in my life, or something like that. Are we good? Do you want to participate? Cool. Whoa, 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 whoa. Wait. I mean, I say I want to count to 3, okay? 1, 2, 3. Let's see if it works. Thank you very much. Thank you. Well, my name is FACUNDO GIULIANI. Today I will speak about the Edge. First of all, I want to introduce myself. I'm the manager of a team of developer relations at Storyblok. Storyblok is a headless content management system. The talk is not related to Storyblok. If you want to talk about that, you can find me on the rooms. I'm also one of the organizers of React Buenos Aires. React Buenos Aires is the biggest React community in Argentina. We organize monthly meetups. If you want to come and participate, you are more than invited. And the same with Dev Summit Argentina. It's a new community that we started to organize now with a couple of friends. I see that it's working. There we go. So, yeah, this is me. When I was preparing the talk, I wanted to joke about, do you know what is this? Are you familiar with Aerosmith, Living on the Edge? Cool song, no? Okay, I see why I had to change the title of the presentation. Or do you know who they are? No. Do you know the name of the band? You too. The guitar player is the one, the first from the right. Do you know the name of the guy? There you go. But well, I mean, I'm not sure because this has like a 90s vibe and there's a lot of centennials, millennials, decennials, I don't know the name anymore. But probably you weren't going to follow my joke, so I had to change the name of the presentation. But another thing that has 90s vibe is a website like this one. This is the official website of Space Jam. Actually, it's live. If you want to visit it, you can see it. And websites like this in the 90s, it used to work, and they still work like this, basically. You have a browser, the browser sends a request to a web server, which is basically a machine, a computer, like the ones that you have right now in your labs. That computer executed the logic and generated the content to deliver to the user that was browsing the website. This is how it works. Actually, they were and they are really computers. Like, this is a real case in Europe where they had a machine which is actually a server, and if you unplug the machine, your website is not living anymore, right? So you have to be careful with that. But besides that issue, there's a couple more issues with that approach, let's say. The thing is, we have one origin server, let's call it that in that way. The origin server is the one that will execute each one of the requests that is coming from the different users and will generate the content to deliver that to them. If I have millions of users or thousands of concurrent users that are requesting the same logic or requesting the same website, we will overload this web server. And besides that, we also have, I mean, if we are managing one web server, it's in a particular location in the world, and depending on where I'm browsing the page from, it will take more time to deliver the content or not. I came from Argentina. It took me like 15 hours to fly to Alicante. Of course, I mean, internet is way faster. We have fiber and everything. But you got the idea. Like, I mean, if I'm browsing a website from Argentina and the web server is in London, let's say, it will take more time than if I'm located into London. So those two issues, like the overloading of the web server and the time that it takes to retrieve the content were solved when the concept of content delivery network was introduced. After a few years, this idea appeared, or this approach appeared, where a CDN, or a content delivery network, is basically a group of geographically distributed servers that are speeding up the delivery of the content, basically because we are creating a network of nodes, as they call it, of computers that are delivering the same content to the users. And depending on where the user is located, they are going to send the request to the closer server, let's say. So basically, I mean, instead of having one origin server, we will have different locations or different nodes where, depending on the user is browsing the website or requesting the resource, the request will travel to the closest node of this network. And in following this approach, we are having some benefits, like we are reducing the bandwidth consumption of the origin server, because we may have an origin server, and I will tell you why now. We will have a better performance because, again, the request is traveling less distance, and it's going to be more secure because the requests are going to different nodes of the network instead of going all of them to one only web server. And more security because if we unplug one computer, we have other computers in the network that can help us. But the thing is, the CDNs are a group of servers that are improved to deliver static content. That means that the files that we are going to deliver from the different nodes of the CDN are going to be exactly the same for all the users that are going to visit our website or consume these resources. We don't have a way of creating dynamic content on the fly based on the request of the person with the nodes that are part of a CDN. I'm going to give you an example of real life or an analogy on this CDN approach. This is not a paid advertisement, but it can be if I get the proper benefits. So let's see if in the future, the company that I'm going to name can come to me and say, hey, Facundo, we can do something together. Okay. Juguetes Perdidos is, from my point of view, the best beer, the best brewery that we have in Argentina. It's amazing. I mean, I like beer, and this one is really, really good. I mean, if you come to Argentina, if you come to Buenos Aires with me, I can take you to the brewery. We can do the tap room there and enjoy some beers. It's great. As I was saying, beers, they are barrel aged and things like that, but I don't want to get into the brewery world. What I wanted to mention is that, as I said, they are created in Buenos Aires, Argentina, the beautiful city where I live. I have a friend, Juan. He moved from Buenos Aires to Valencia, and then he moved to Alicante. And he's living in Alicante now. Alicante, another beautiful city, of course. And actually, if you know any brewery in Alicante or any bar that has cool beers, please come to me and tell me, because I'm really into the beer. But Juan, he moved to Alicante, and now he's missing, the nostalgic feeling of wanting to drink a Juguetes Perdidos beer, you know? So what did the guys do at that point? Well, they created like a distribution network in Spain where they are brewing the beer in Buenos Aires. They are bringing the beer to Spain, sending it to different distribution centers, and then the bars and the shops that want to sell their beer, they go to the distribution center and they get the beer. Did you get the analogy? No. We are brewing the beer in Argentina, and that beer that is already created or already brewed, we are bringing it to Spain, and instead of having to take a plane to go to Buenos Aires to drink this amazing beer, you just go to the closest distribution center that you have in your country, and you get the beer, right? As you can see, and I'm trying to do the analogy because I mentioned before this static content or static assets. The content that the CDNs are distributing is exactly the same for all the users. We can have an origin server that is generating or pre-generating this static content, but the users are going to consume all of them, this static content that was generated and then cached into the different nodes of the CDN. This approach led to start thinking about ways of getting the advantage of a CDN. We have static site generation with different frameworks. Probably you are familiar with them, Gatsby, Next.js, and other. I mean, those are React-based frameworks, but we have frameworks like this with other technologies. And with this same approach, we also led to the term of the Jamstack, where we are trying to get the best of the content that we can pre-generate at build time, this static content, and then if we need to load some dynamic content that depends on the user that is visiting our website or other conditions, we can do that based on APIs that we can call from these static files or static content that we generated. Using React, for instance, I mean, React is using client-side generation, which is, we can use the same approach because we can load an initial page with all the JavaScript code that we need to execute the React logic for all our components. And we can deliver these same files to all the users that are visiting our website. The JavaScript files, the CSS files, the HTML files. We have a website running, that's static, and we can use the CDNs. But an issue that is happening with this is what I was mentioning before. This is static content. We have to pre-build that content so we can have a build time that is taking a long period of time to generate all the pages that I need for my website, or probably this dynamic content that I need to generate is happening very frequently, and that can affect the performance of my website because these calls to external APIs, if they are using particular web servers in certain locations of the world, they can generate these longer times of loading, and that can affect the performance of my website. So after years of evaluating this situation and seeing how we can improve that and thinking about different ideas, different web hosting providers and other companies came up with, first of all, I wanted to show you an example, but what I was mentioning before, we have these nodes in the CDN, and if we need dynamic data, we will depend on the origin server that is going to generate this dynamic data. And again, if we have only one origin server, we will depend on the location, how many people is visiting the website at the same time, and things like that. Trying to improve this situation is where we come to this concept of the edge, that is what the talk is about. I'm on the edge, like Lady Gaga. Lady Gaga, you know Lady Gaga, please. Okay. I just wanted to double check that. We came with this concept of the edge, which is basically the same concept that we had for CDNs, a distributed network of web servers, but in this case, we are able to execute server-side code or logic in these nodes that we have, or in the different regions that we have on our network. Of course, we needed another technology, and these providers needed to implement new logics and ideas to make this possible. But basically, the idea is that we are not only delivering static content closer to the user, we are also executing logic based on the user data as close as we can to them. So basically what we have now is not only that the nodes are going to deliver static content, but they also are going to execute server-side logic to generate dynamic content or dynamic responses. We will see later that there are some limitations, but we can apply this for different use cases. The idea is that based on data that is coming from the visitors or from the users, we can use that data to generate dynamic content or dynamic responses and send that to the users again as fast as we can and as close as we can, using this same network that we had for the CDNs. I will use another analogy, and again, this is not a paid advertisement, but it can be if I get the proper benefits. I'm sure that you are familiar with Heineken. Okay. So Heineken, if I buy a Heineken bottle of beer in Argentina, the beer is not being manufactured in Netherlands, where the original brewery of Heineken is. Heineken has different breweries in different countries where they are creating, following the same formula, the beer that you drink at home. So I mean, that's not technically true. I mean, if I can drink a Heineken in Buenos Aires, and probably it's slightly different to the one that you have here. But the idea is that they are following the same formula in different countries of the world. So if I buy a bottle of Heineken in Argentina, I know that the one that I'm buying was brewed in Argentina. In this case, with each country is different depending on where the closest brewery is. Do you see the analogy? I don't have to go, I mean, I don't have to send an email to John Heineken in Netherlands saying, please send me 10 bottles of Heineken. I can go and, but also what I'm doing is generating dynamically the beers in the different countries that is being consumed in the different locations of the world. Sorry, probably I'm a little too much into the beer topic. No, I will try to change the topic so you don't think that I'm... what I wanted to... I mean, you probably heard the concept of serverless. I wanted to differentiate that because the edge and serverless is not exactly the same. With serverless, basically what we are doing is we can deploy server-side logic into web servers that we don't maintain, so we don't have to take care of DevOps for those web servers. Somebody else is going to take care of that. Big companies that are offering these services. This serverless approach also offers the possibility of paying depending on how many requests you are getting, how much time they are consuming to be executed and deliver the content to the users. And basically they are following this idea because what they have, or when we talk about the serverless, is not a real web server like the one that we saw at the beginning. It has a different way of working that it starts or set up the function or the server-side logic that you want to execute whenever a request is coming. So we don't have a web server the 24 hours of the day waiting for your request. It's like it demands a little setup time to enable the logic to be executed for your request and then delivering the response to the users. What's the difference with the edge? The thing is that serverless is not technically happening on different parts of the world, unless you configure that in that way. But a serverless function can be running in one specific region of the world, and we are having the same issue that we had with the origin server. Like, if I have only one serverless location for my application, my request will have to travel to that part of the world, wait for the response, and things like that. So what we are seeing here is that the edge, the concept of the edge that was introduced by different providers, is like a mix between serverless and the CDNs, because we have the serverless idea of not having to maintain a web server, but also replicating this logic or being able to execute the server-side logic in different parts of the world, as we do with the CDNs. A funny thing, when I use this meme, yesterday there were a couple of speakers at the hotel that they were comparing their biceps. You can ask some of them about that. I know some of them was here. I'm probably looking into, yeah. I mean, I don't know what, I mean, they were comparing like Solid with React. I didn't understand the comparison or the analogy. I mean, they were comparing the biceps, and this bicep is React, this bicep is Solid.js. You can ask the speakers about that later. But well, I mean, just pure fate. So what are the advantages that we are getting with a setup like this? Basically, the same that we get with CDNs, like we are having a better performance, more security, but we are also getting real-time insights and the possibility of scaling our project because, again, we are executing the server-side logic in different parts of the world. So basically, the same benefits that we have with the CDN, but generating dynamic content too based on data or aspects that depend on the user that is visiting our website. Some use cases that we have or scenarios where you could apply edge computing are personalization. Let's say that depending on the user, a certain aspect of the user, you want to deliver certain content or a different type of content. I don't know, you can recognize somehow the different type of users that you have in your website and deliver the content based on that. You can also use geolocation. If I'm visiting the website from Argentina, I want to see this page. If I'm visiting from Spain, I want to see this other page, or show how's the weather like in Alicante, if I'm visiting from Alicante, for instance. We can do A/B testing, test different versions of our pages with this server-side logic, defining which version of the content showing to the different users. And also we can implement security. In these edge functions, we can implement authentication, authorization, like verify that the user that is visiting our website has the proper rights to see the content that we are going to deliver, and things like that. But yeah, React Alicante, Facundo, come on, talk a little bit about React. Like, you didn't mention the word React until now. Okay, let's talk about React. I would talk about a couple of frameworks, React-based frameworks that are using or are implementing this edge computing logic. One of them is Next.js, one of the most popular React-based frameworks probably. Next.js offers the possibility of using edge functions, and edge functions are basically serverless functions or scripts that are executing server-side rendering code, and they can be distributed on different regions. As we were speaking before, the same idea of a CDN, but with the possibility of executing these functions on different parts of the world. What's the thing? Edge functions run on the edge runtime that is built on top of a JavaScript V8 engine following certain web standards API. What this means is that this edge runtime is a reduced version of Node runtime, let's say, which means that you are not able to do whatever you can do with a runtime like Node with this edge runtime. So these edge functions are going to be smaller, or they will be able to do less things than what we can do with a web server, and that's something that we have to consider at the moment of creating our website and our application, right? Let me show you an example on how one of these edge functions would look like. Basically, what you can do with Next.js is create a function that intercept the request that is coming from the user, and based on, we can manage some parameters that are related to the request itself, like which URL is using the user to visit this route that he's trying to reach. And based on that, we can send a message or something like that. You can even use some explicit configuration on what's the runtime that you can use, because at the end of the day, these applications that we are creating, we are going to deploy them into a web server or a hosting provider, which are the ones that are actually providing us the logic to implement edge computing. We will discuss about that later, but it's not that I'm creating the edge function with Next.js and wherever I deploy my function is going to actually work on an edge network. That's something that we have to keep in mind. Another example of edge function, you can catch the request that is coming from the user, and what I was saying before, you can use authentication, authorization, or things like that. I can catch an ID that is coming with the request, and based on that, I can fetch data related to the user and return that data instead of visiting the page or actually returning that object and doing something with React with client-side rendering inside my own page. Another concept that is introduced by Next.js is the middleware. What we can do is create an intermediate tier that executes custom logic and tasks before the request is processed. So whenever I receive a request in my server or edge server, I can process that request and based on that do something. So I can intercept each and every request that is coming to my web server and execute logic. You can see an example here. One of the use cases that I mentioned was security or authentication. What we can verify with the middleware is that whenever a user is visiting certain pages of my website, verify if the user is logged in, if that user is, if the page that the user is trying to visit is correct or not, if they have access or not. Another example of middleware using Next.js would be creating a middleware where I'm setting certain flags on the users based on certain conditions, and depending on the flags, I'm showing one page or another page, or showing, applying A/B testing and showing a new version of the page that I want to see how it is working, or things like that. This is another example. Again, the middleware, the idea is that you can configure that into your Next.js application, and it will catch every request that is going to the server. And this is actually happening before the cache layer that we can set on our application. So what I can do is execute this code, and the response that this code is generating, I can cache it, and for the other users that are going to request exactly the same, I can deliver the cached version of the content, which is super helpful. Another React-based framework is Remix. Remix, well, basically is an edge-first framework. That's how they call it, because they created the framework thinking on the edge, and thinking on the idea that you can deploy any Remix project into an edge network. And it will work, of course, as I said before, depending on the different providers and what are the functionalities or the ways that the edge network of each provider is working. This is basically the main function that I can create on a route handler in Remix. Is a to-do list. I'm using, on the second line, you can see that I'm using a loader data that is coming from the server, and based on that data, I'm showing a list of to-dos that I have in my page, and then I have a form that is executing a post action, and I can create new to-dos and add that to the list. So here, I mean, this is code, this is React, basically, but what we are calling is some server-side logic that can be executed or can be hosted on the edge. This would be, I mean, this same code can be altogether on the same route and on the same file, but what Remix offers us is two main functions, let's say, or functionality, which are the loaders and the actions. The loaders are basically used to fetch data and return that to my page or to the client-side rendering part of my page, which in this case, if you see at the bottom of the example, we have a loader that is getting all the to-dos that I already created and returning that to my rendering function. And then we can have an action function which is going to execute certain logic. In this case, what we are going to do is to create the new to-dos that I'm creating, and then, well, we are redirecting the user to the to-do that I just created. This part of the logic is server-side logic and can be deployed to edge servers. What Remix mentioned is that they are using a next generation edge, because you can, I mean, these routes that you are creating and the handlers that you are going to use for the different page of your website, you can define at the page level or at the root level if you want to use edge computing, if you want to use a Node.js runtime because you need something more complex that the edge runtime is not offering you an API to do that, or something like that. But basically, the code that you are creating with Remix can be deployed into an edge network, verifying that it works depending on the provider. For instance, one of the providers that we have for edge computing or edge logic is Vercel, because, well, Vercel is the creator of Next.js. They have their own edge functions, and you can use edge functions with Remix too. You can use an NPM package that Vercel created to deploy Remix applications into Vercel servers. You can add some configurations. Again, you can explicitly mention which runtime do you want to use and things like that, but you can do that. Another provider of edge functions is Netlify. Netlify also offers edge functions. The difference is that Netlify is basing the logic of the edge functions on Dino, another runtime, an open source runtime called Dino, and they are using Dino in the background to execute all this logic, but the way that it's working is very similar to what Vercel is offering. Of course, after the talk, you can go on internet and see the actual differences. Probably the differences are on the prices too, and something that you want to evaluate at the moment of implementing something like this. But the logic is kind of the same. Another provider is Cloudflare. Cloudflare offers the workers, which are, I would say, one of the first approaches to the edge computing or the edge logic. Actually, Vercel and Netlify edge functions are kind of based on the workers that Cloudflare offered and or developed. But again, another edge network that you can evaluate for your projects. And also another example is Fly.io. Fly.io basically offers you the possibility of deploying a whole application with the database and everything to the edge, of course with certain limitations, again, and depending on what the hosting provider is offering you, and the possibilities that you can, but basically you can deploy your whole application, even with a database, to the edge. Actual other providers are offering these databases on the edge. It's really cool, and I encourage you to take a look, because it's kind of a tricky concept. I mean, if you are managing data that is related to the different users from the whole world, and you're managing different small databases on different parts of the world, it's cool. I mean, they are implementing this same logic into the databases too. So, well, with this talk, what I wanted to present is that, from my point of view, I'm really excited to see what's coming with this edge approach. It's the future in the way that we are rethinking the way that we create websites and how we host the websites and how we are creating and managing our projects. I think it's the future, but it's also the present. I mean, what we just saw on my presentation is that you can create your application right now, your project right now, using the edge. So it's here. I mean, all of what we saw is available for you to be used. So I would say that, I mean, the edge is the future, but what we saw in the presentation is also the present of the edge. If you want to know also the present of the other edge, the guy's still rocking on the stages and he's doing pretty well. It's a little bit older than the picture that we saw at the beginning, but he's still rocking the stage. So, gracias, thank you very much.